The arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona podcast in which we're playing through Persona 3 Reload day by day, week by week, along with the in-game calendar. And yes, that means we're getting goofy at the end of the game as we're here. I am your host, Jonathan Dornbush, joined, as always, by my fellow co-host, Tom Marks. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm good. Any rational human being would have beaten Persona 3 by now.
They really would have.
I have not. I literally said when we beat the final boss and paused, I turned to my wife and I was like, what do you think is the percentage of people who just stop playing at this save point? It's got to be really low, right?
You would assume. I mean, there's probably people who are like, let me save, go take a bathroom break, and then they get delayed, and then they forget about the game, and they're like, did I beat that one? I must have. I fought a boss, right? Like, that happened. Yes, we are, in the nature of the show, talking about it along with the calendar, so we are talking about specifically this week the dates of January 26th through January 31st, and nothing after that.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about that as we go along, and obviously why, and again, just some of what the plans are for the coming weeks. But before we get there, we have, of course, our usual housekeeping at the top of the show, so I want to make sure we do all that. And that, of course, starts with our confidant call out. This is a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who is supporting us over at the Patreon, patreon.com/takeyourtime at the Palace Ruler tier. We appreciate all of your support, and so thank you so much to the following: Bob and Tim 64, Brody S, Cameron C, Claudia R, Dallas, Damon, Dan, Danimal Lover, Default Titus, Dexter, Caitlin E, Keegan H, Matt Attack, Metaphor, Michael V, P King, Programmer Sid, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, Something Witty, Willie Wang Wang, and Zachary L. Thank you all so much for supporting us, and thank you to everyone over at the Patreon who has been supporting us. We really, really appreciate it that your encouragement and support has really made this season come to life. And speaking of that encouragement and everything, obviously, for everything we do over at the Patreon, we know this month, there was a lot of sicknesses being dealt with, a lot of weird scheduling stuff we had to contend with. So we do appreciate your patience. The bonus episode for January will go up this coming week. We know it's the first week of February. There will still be a bonus episode there, but just want to set the stage that we apologize for that, but it is coming this week. So yeah, look forward to that. But yeah, of course, want to mention the fact, as we mentioned last week, just in case you happen to have missed it somehow, as I was mentioning with the schedule, we are going to hold discussion of what happens on March 4th until March 4th. Yeah. That will be sort of the end of this season. We are still going to be recording episodes throughout February. We'll be doing stuff like catching up on social links. I'm never going to get used to that.
Yeah, I know.
I've only played this game twice. And, talking about some of the other elements maybe of the game that we haven't dived into as much, as well as just other sort of more broader aspects related to it. Obviously, if you all have suggestions of what you might want to hear in those intervening weeks, let us know over at the Patreon or at youtube.com/journology. We'd obviously love to hear from you. But yes, we'll be doing that. And then there won't be any episodes for the rest of March. And then we will have a finale sort of post-epilogue episode covering the episode Aigis, the Answer DLC on March 31st. So look forward to all of that. After that, as we mentioned last week, we are taking a slumber, a hibernation, and sort of taking an indefinite hiatus. No plans at this moment. Do appreciate everyone. There were a few comments this week in particular on YouTube who want to know what we think of Persona 4 Golden. Some because they believe it has not held up story-wise, but I don't know a thing about that. So, we'll let you know if that's ever in the cards. But for now, we're excited to bring this to a conclusion and recap everything that's been. But yeah. Before I forget any further, Tom, let's dive back into last week's quiz.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I asked, why was Chidori going to die in 2 years? Or maybe would have still if you didn't get this scene last week. Did anybody chime in with this?
My favorite answer that we got comes from Sable, who said Chidori had a terminal case of secondary character disease, Somehow, Shinji caught it too.
Dang, too real.
That's rough. John wrote in and said they have no idea what the doctor specifically said, but they thought in general the reason her life was shortened was the experiments all the Strega kids were subjected to.
Yeah, that was the implication, and that's also sort of what Jin talks about. But very specifically, the answer I was looking for was that the doctor says, and this is mostly a quote or close to a quote, her damaged endocrine system and other internal organs were also healed.
Damn.
Just like hyper specific thing that was not ever mentioned another time. I don't know. It just jumped out to me.
Endocrine feels like either someone was like, we need a science word in here to make it seem legit, or someone who had an interest in science was like, let's maybe add something legit in here to make it sound better. So I appreciate it either way. But yeah.
Yeah. So that apparently is that's how the horrible experiments manifested themselves within these poor experimented upon children.
That's so funny how specific it gets. But yeah, we'll probably be talking about those experiments a little bit this week because it plays into some of the characters we come face to face with.
Yes.
On our final climb through Tartarus. So without further ado, let's get to the week. And of course, we're going to really take our time with this week because there's not much toward the end of the week that I think we're going to want to discuss. It's really a front-loaded week, if I do say so myself.
Yes, definitely. No, they really sprint through this one. Like, this is really like get whatever you need to get done because you're out of time. So there's really not any story stuff, I think, in these first 5 days. Maybe literally.
I think you might be right, especially because, and obviously, the game is not engineered to be good for a show like this.
No, so, it's not a complaint.
Exactly.
To be clear.
It's but it is definitely, you can feel the game being like, hey, we're giving you the space to finish what you can. Do it. Don't waste these days. Yeah.
So of course I went to Tartarus and grinded to 99.
Hell yeah.
No.
Well, we'll find out what you did because let's get through these days because I'm really excited to talk about the end of this week.
Specifically, yes. Or real quickly, follow up from last week. Oh, yeah. I way underestimated my hour count.
Oh, okay.
When I loaded up this week, I was at like 90, a little over 90 hours. I thought I was like 70 to 80. So
okay, nice.
I was way lower than I thought it was. I was much higher than what is typical, I think, for this game.
That definitely gets you, though, near where I was in my first playthrough. So that feels comparable. Yeah.
Yeah.
But cool. Let's dive into it. January 26th. I believe this is a just free day. So what did you do day and night?
I got Aigis rank 6.
Nice.
So this was the tension of my week leading up to the final boss. Was I had exactly, if you don't count the Sunday of the full moon, I had exactly 5 days to get Aigis exactly 5 ranks, and if anything came up, it wasn't going to happen, and I was not confident it would happen. But it means my days are very predictable this week. I got Aigis rank 6. There's a very funny text message you can get from her where she uses just about 1,000 cat emojis because she says she really likes the cat emoji now.
Yeah. I love her adapting to human life. It's very cute.
Yeah. Becoming a true high schooler.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the evening, I gardened with Fuka.
Nice. You also have to think this is earlier days of texting, too. So, any sort of emotes, emoticons, emojis, that's a big deal at that time.
Yeah, it's true.
I went to the arcade and upped my agility.
And then?
And then I went to the arcade and upped my agility.
Are you just a gamer? Have you just been a solid week gaming before this thing?
If I may, Mark from the Patreon said, in the final weeks of the game, you can play a video game after school and then in the evening play around on your computer because you have nothing better to do. At long last, Persona 3 has captured the authentic high school experience. But I took it one step further and was like, I'm just going to hang out at the arcade.
You have to tell me now, did you just spend every single day and night in the arcade?
January 27th. Tom, what did you do with your day and night? I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours.
I got Aigis rank 7, and then I went to the arcade for Magic.
Nice. During the day, I went to the arcade and upped my magic, and during the evening, I went to the arcade and upped my magic.
Remind me, the 25th you also did arcade, right?
I did for my strength, yes.
So you literally are going to have like a solid week of this?
I have the buffest Loki to ever exist. This
Amazing.
persona is shredded. Hopefully my dog didn't hear me from the other room. Is like, what?
This is the thing, is like, money doesn't matter at this point. It's not even very expensive. And 3 stat is good, right?
6 total in a day is pretty incredible, yeah.
6 total is that's a big boost.
I could have spent a lot of time min-maxing personas in the Velvet Room and, Tartarus and all that, or I can go to the arcade. So I went to the arcade.
Love it.
But yeah, let's move on to the next day, which is January 28th. We do have a little bit of just quick in-class time here. It's Ms. Toriumi in the last composition class, but she says, fear not, final exams are coming up. And oh boy, wouldn't that be funny if right before the boss fight there was a week of final exams. Luckily not.
This lecture is interesting too. I do want to touch on it very quickly.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't say much. She basically just talks about the final exams. But if you stay awake, you get like a really long dialogue from her talking about like hope and fighting against the darkness in your heart and believing in the good amidst the bad. Like, it's a really epic, very, very poignant thing for her to be discussing in the middle of all this cult end of the world stuff. It's very hopeful, which is kind of cool because it does again tie in that, she is a social link person and believes in something bigger in a way that none of the other teachers do, really.
Yeah. No, it's a nice way to tie that in, especially for what I think is safe to say, though correct me if I'm wrong, probably our favorite of the teachers as a side character. Or high
probably
up there. Yeah. Top 2, I would say, at least.
Yeah, definitely. And no, I'm just going to go number 1.
Okay, good. I agree. I think it's also one of those things where I'm like, after this whole thing, give me Toriumi as a member of S.E.E.S. Like, she could watch over us and deal with playing online games too late in the night.
Actually, I think we have to give number 1 to the teacher that Kenji ran out of the school, because that was our fault. And I feel like we have to give kind of like a we're sorry consolation number 1 to her.
That's fair. We could just maybe give her a job because we did cost her one of those. But anyway.
That'd be better.
What did you do with your day and evening?
Well, I got Aigis to rank 8.
Ooh.
And then I went to the arcade for strength.
Wonderful. During the day, I went to the arcade and upped my strength. And during the night, I went to the arcade and upped my strength.
Love it.
Boy, it was a lot of clicking fast forward on my game this week.
Yeah.
January 29th, I think, we can talk about what we did. What did you do during the day? And I think we probably had the same evening.
Yeah. So this was Aigis rank 9 and then arcade for agility.
You didn't go on a walk with everyone?
Huh?
Oh, Tom.
What?
Oh, no.
What are you talking about?
Tommy boy, no.
There's a thing you can do that night?
So I
talked to people.
So I went to the arcade and upped my agility. There is a option to take Koromaru on a walk.
I don't know if I got that.
Oh, I don't know why I had it then. Someone will have to tell us if there's an unlock here. I guess, do you mind if I spoil it a little bit then?
No, I mean, the game is done.
All right. So you can go on a walk with Koromaru, and who can walk with you this night is everyone.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, so the whole group goes out with you, and it's everyone kind of at the park. It's a really sweet, just like moment of everyone enjoying each other's company, not acting like the end of the world is about to happen, not acting like, this could all be over in a flash. You get Yukari and Mitsuru talking about going clothes shopping, and Mitsuru's like, don't say that so loud. They don't need to know that we're going to go hang out and do that. And Fuka and Junpei are playing on the jungle gym. Akihiko and Ken are at the slide, and Aki wants Ken to slide down as weird as he can, and Akihiko starts to take off his shirt because he was going to go down, like, I think belly first. And Ken is like, no, stop that. And then there's a really cute moment where Aigis is like trying to get Koromaru to shake, and she puts out her hand for shake, and he just puts both of his paws on top of her head, and she's like, "Is this the appropriate response to shake?" And then he just goes, "Arf," and she's like, "I understand." It's really cute. It's just a really great, like, here's everyone getting to be kids and getting to have fun together. It's really, really sweet. Yeah.
I don't know if that was offered to me.
Oh, man, that's a bummer. I'd be really curious if anyone knows if it's locked.
Maybe you have to have all of them maxed out.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe I did, because I didn't have Aigis that day.
Yeah.
I had one more day with her.
Yeah. That could be it. Yeah. Well, it's a cute scene, but yeah.
Bummer.
It doesn't really affect
you know what?
the story, obviously.
Chidori is dead for you, so whatever. I'm just saying, if I had to pick
you're
one.
not wrong. We had a nice night at the park. You brought someone back from the dead. We are not the same. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on from there to January 30th.
Yeah. So this was the big tension moment for me, and Aigis was exactly available all 5 of these days. So this was I skipped the maximum amount of days that I could have skipped with Aigis and still getting her to rank 10.
That's incredible.
Which I think was literally, like, again, I think I said it without the rewind or including the rewind. I think you only can skip like 4 days with her. I think you literally have like 14 opportunities to hang out with Aigis, and that's it.
It's really, it's a tight turnaround. Yeah.
So I did that, and then I am very glad to. And then I did the arcade for Magic that night.
Awesome. I, during the day, went to the arcade and upped my Magic, and in the night, went to the arcade and upped my Magic.
Hooray!
You do, of course, today get a warning from Aigis when you get home of like, hey, once we enter Tartarus tomorrow, we can't leave. So do what you need to do tonight. Yeah.
But they do give you a ample amount of sort of time to just run around on the 31st, which I was a little surprised by. I mean, I'm glad that they do it, but they give you more time on the 31st than I was expecting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's very clearly the game wants you to feel, and I don't know how this compares to the original, because I know people say like the P3 calendar originally was pretty tough to especially max out all social links, but here it does feel pretty forgiving in the sense of like, if you've been keeping up with stuff, you probably are getting down to some free days. In my first playthrough, I spent these last few days having very little to do, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to finish a couple social links, so I really role-played these last few days. I like hung out with the people in the dorm, made sure I hung out with each of them, did a little like activity here and there. It was like, yeah, might as well. But,
well, you role-played this week too on this playthrough, but just very different.
I just role-played as myself.
Yeah.
So let's move on to January 31st before I interrogate that joke any further. Yes, as you were saying, you do get some time around, and you're sort of let out and free around town if you want to. I do love that you step out. No one is in the dorm.
Yeah, this was, and you can talk to Aigis, I think it is, on the front step.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, everyone went out and about and wanted to do whatever they wanted to do today.
It's very sweet.
There's a, generally speaking, this last week, there's little conversations you can have here and there around town that are leading up to the end that can be kind of cute. And the ones for this one, like Yukari and Mitsuru are on that shopping trip that I guess they talked about that I didn't see. And who is it? Junpei. Junpei's on the bench for Chidori and has some dialogue that's definitely was written as if you did not save her life.
Yes.
I was like, we gotta keep it warm for her now that she's gone or something like, and you're just like, wait, what? But
made perfect sense to me.
I don't think I found Agihiko.
I did, but I forget where. I didn't write down where he is, but I think I found everyone.
Oh, no, I did. He was somewhere. He was upstairs. That's what it was. He was up on one of the upper levels in the strip mall, but it took me a while. It took me longer to find him.
Yeah, it talks to you about getting food, and then is it Ken and Koromaru are at the shrine?
Yes, Ken and Koromaru were at the shrine.
Yeah, it's sweet.
And Fuka is just in front of the dorm with Aigis.
Yeah. And then you do get a day.
Yeah.
So what did you do with your day?
I tragically got Hayase to 9.
Incredible.
So that's the last time. The nice thing about getting him to 9 is that I did, avoiding spoilers so we can talk about him in the next couple weeks, but I did get him to a point in his story that felt resolved, right? Like, I also think I only got Hiraga to 4 or something, but some early spoilers for his story. I think that's the one where they're like, congratulations, you won this great art award, and he's like, hooray, I can do both now, and is like very happy with himself. And I was like, good, that's fine. You're living your best life. I don't need to ruin that with some tragic backstory.
That's a good enough place to leave a person. Yeah, next time you meet up with him, he's like, so my entire family has disappeared in a mysterious boating accident 30 years ago.
Yeah. So, Hayase to 9. Got to see, I didn't, get the full thing with him, but at least I got to see his story come around a little bit.
Nice. Well, I went to the arcade and upped my magic. A full week of it. What a time we all had. Because we were preparing. I was buffing up my persona to take on these final battles. So let's get into it.
I like that this week was pretty chill and just let you sort of prep and had lots of little story conversations here and there on the side, but nothing shoved in your face until this team meeting that finally happens.
Yes, yeah. So speaking of, we got the gang gathering at night to kind of talk about their final excursion, where we're all going in for. Obviously, we're kind of, in this final state of mind of how is this going to go? We'll figure it out. During this conversation, I do like that Yukari notes how, like, even though we've been fighting to save everyone and our lives and all our memories, 1, this will probably mean that if we succeed, the Dark Hour will go away. And 2, we might also not remember any of this, because though we fought to remember each other, like, if the Dark Hour goes away, it's possible that also makes our memories of it go away.
Right. So they make this, that was the thing I thought. It's like they're all vowing to remember each other, and then they make this commitment to, like, actually meet up again.
Yes, yeah. So they are like, we need to meet up, but it can't be too soon after, because we are going to all come back to the dorm. Like, we are living here. Yukari, I think, makes a really great note of, like, our memories might not immediately go away anyway. It might just be like a slow deterioration of things. So we need to pick a moment far enough away, but important enough that we'll all be able to get together again. So they choose graduation day for the 3rd years.
Right.
As their marker.
Which we already saw with the bad ending.
We did, yes. So we'll get to see what the good ending of that is like in March. So I love that you're committed to it.
I'm committed to the bit.
It's great. It's so great.
I'm not playing this video game for a month.
It's incredible. And so they talk about all of that, meet up on graduation day, specifically on the roof of the school, because it will be a great place to see life still going on in the city and things having returned to normal.
Yeah.
So that's their plan. They all vow to kind of, remember how they're feeling right now. And then let's go to Tartarus, basically. Like, let's do this.
Wait. First, Let's sell all of our items and buy as much stuff as we can.
I mean, a reasonable, yeah.
I don't know what it was, but there was this just catharsis of RPGs are so often like rationing your resources and your money. And I think this game, as long as you don't, if you're grinding and you'll get ahead on money and resources, and that's just sort of how it works because you're grinding, right? But this game, I think, is exceptionally well tuned in terms of if you're pretty much just doing the path that you're supposed to do at any given time and going out of your way to do the extras, but not like grind. It is very well tuned in terms of you have resources to do what you want, but you have to make decisions and you have to be thinking about what you're spending stuff on. Yeah. So this last day of just like, well, what anything can I craft with my gems? Can I buy 10,000 healing items? I'm going to make sure everyone has the best equipment in the shop. All of these weapons and accessories that I've been holding on to and didn't need to, I sold all of them and made like $600,000, right? Like, it was just ridiculous. And then I went and bought, and this is the main reason I'm telling this, I went and bought the accessory from the Escapade jeweler guy that makes it so you can't get status ailments.
Ooh, nice.
And and I put that on my leader, and man, it was such a good decision.
That's smart. That's really smart.
It came up many times during the course of this final encounters. And especially it came up a lot because the speed of my party, and we'll get into this, but my party was the main character, Yukari, Koromaru, Mitsuru. That was sort of the party I settled into for the end of the game. And they acted in that turn order. So it was party leader, Yukari, Koromaru, Mitsuru. And so many times during these fights, and which obviously we're going to get into, but so many times during these fights, the boss would use some, and they were all, this is the other thing, they were all always faster than whatever the enemy was.
Okay. Yeah.
So it would use something, they would use something that was like confuse all, everyone but the main character would get confused, and then it would be his turn and he would just use salvation. And it was like, great, everyone's back to normal.
That's
so
great.
It meant I like never missed turn cycles because of that stuff. And this was literally like this spontaneous last minute, whatever, it's the end of the game decision to buy this item. And man, it paid off big.
That's amazing. Yeah, that was a great call. To your point, it is really nice to just kind of say, this is the end. I need the good stuff. Let's just get into it and get well equipped and move on. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very fun.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, definitely let me know. I can imagine when it most came in handy, but yeah, like definitely let me know if you ran into any of those problems. I would say the group I ran in with and mostly stayed with this time was Leader, Yukari, Junpei, and who else did I do? Fuka, of course. No, Aigis, because I was like, let me do kind of the second years. I thought it was cute. As like
group. That's nice. That's nice indeed.
Reasonably balanced. So, yeah. Anyway, after everyone kind of resolves to remember how we feel, we're looking toward the future, we're focused on doing this thing and sticking together, we go to Tartarus.
Hooray!
Jump into the action, and you got a couple floors to get through first.
Man, steam coming out of my ears. I went up that first floor and I went, wait, why is there like little pillar things I can break? And then I just saw an enemy and I was like, is this just a normal floor? And I was so mad, I immediately used Fuka's ability to scan the floor and just left.
Amazing. I mean, thank goodness it is not 20 more floors per
No, I
boss
think it's
battle.
Just 1 the first time and then 2 the second. It's not many.
No, but it is really funny. It throws you, and I do think it takes a while to show you an enemy. So I kind of was like, oh, I forget if Jin is on this floor or up the next floor. But yeah.
Yeah. And it was to be fair, and I will, eat crow on this. It annoys me, but at the same time, it is objectively a good thing in terms of fighting.
Yeah.
Because if you already have completed Tartarus like we have, it allows you to farm Arcana cards to get stats up or to get Theurgies charging faster or prep, right? Yeah. It allows you to charge your Theurgies before you then go into these boss fights. So there's it's not like it's there for no good reason. It makes sense why it's there. I just saw that and I was like, how dare you?
No, totally.
It was my gut reaction.
Inherently a smart balancing tool for the player. Yeah. But yeah, it's just very funny.
And to the point of what I did, you have the tools to just boop Sylphidora, or not Sylphidora, that's the other one, but Tartarus search and then just go.
Yeah. So whatever you choose to do, you make your way up and you go up and you find Jin.
Yeah.
You're ready to take on Nyx. First, you got to fight Jin.
My takeaway of Jin after this fight, I will say, is that I found him boring. I just was like, all right, man, good on ya. Let's get to the real one.
I would say what you learn from here is not anything mechanically, the fight's whatever, but in terms of character wise, it just really reinforces the idea that these guys did really suffer to a degree.
Yes.
And it makes sense why he puts his faith in Takaya to the extent he does, because he feels so indebted his entire life to Takaya helping him.
Yeah, I guess what
made specific here.
I guess what I mean by boring is his whole thing is basically just lapdog. Like I thought he was gonna have some sort of dimension like Chidori does, but he's basically just fully like, I'm devoted to Takaya, and I don't have any other personality. My personality is my boyfriend. It's like fully that.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, like, it does help, I guess, a little bit. You learn what, honestly, the most interesting part of this for me was the way it impacts Mitsuru's character, because she learns from him that the Kirijo group was rounding up orphans to wake up personas.
Yes, that is the most horrible part of this. So that was pre-fight, or that's post-fight.
That's post-fight,
I guess.
yes,
I'm jumping around because he mentions he talks about how Akutsuki was the one who made them right beforehand, and then they learned about Nyx because of Akutsuki's ramblings. But like that was already stuff we sort of knew or assumed.
Could easily infer, yeah.
The fight itself, I do think. It was kind of, because I want to talk about these mechanically too.
Yeah,
it's a little bit grindy. He had a lot of health and he heals himself at one point, but he does do this kind of cool thing where he heals himself and then takes more damage but is super strong, except in practicality he's not very strong. He was used like a focused Megidola and it like did like 150 damage, and I was like, cool, bud.
Yeah.
But he does do this like weakness search thing, so he
Yes.
can target weaknesses. So there was this fun little sub game of like, I was constantly using my protagonist to use Makara Karn to like protect people from those weakness hits, and then beyond that, it was just sort of grinding him down. But it was, it was not like it was interesting. It was just very sort of straightforward within that.
Yeah, there's nothing wild to it. I think it is, to your point, the weakness search is the biggest thing to look out for in the beginning, and it did kind of delay my progress for a little while. But once you start really chipping away at him and you build up a couple theurgies, you can take him out in a few hits. And then I found even when he revived, because of how much he cuts himself down, just a couple big hits really do him in pretty well. So
Yeah.
But to your point, it's not a bad fight. It's just nothing like crazy or imaginative.
It's an appetizer.
Exactly, yes. Then you defeat him. You learn about the Kirijo group's involvement.
The orphans thing.
The orphans, how they basically were giving them, obviously, the experimental drugs to control the personas. Only 3 out of 100 of the orphans survived. Who could those 3 be? And then after 6 months, the whole project was just entirely canceled.
Yeah.
So, and then he, goes into his how, like, Takaya saved him, told him, don't worry about the past or the future, just live in the moment. And he gave him moments to live for, because without him, he feels he would not be around. So he obviously feels indebted to him, and it's his goal to make Takaya's wish come true.
Which was some stuff that we sort of already sort of knew. None of them he talks about is, like, super revelatory, except for the specifics of, like, 97. The Kirijo group was collecting orphans and killed 97 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
And also I do think it's important to note, like, or to notice that, they did shut down the project, and probably that's why they made Aigis, right? But there is interesting parallels to the fact that Akihiko and Shinji were orphans.
Yeah.
Who then they took in with Mitsuru to do exactly what they were trying to get these other orphans to do by exploring Tartarus. So the Kirijo group certainly didn't fully stop doing what it was doing. Like, maybe they weren't literally, like, scooping up Shinji and Akihiko and forcing them into experimentation, but they still were manipulating children.
Yes, they were still a nefarious corporation that knew how to exploit those who were without power or the privilege that group had. And unfortunately, that continued on. It was not as if they learned their lesson after 97 orphans died, which is a hell of a headline that they never allowed to see the light of day. So,
seriously.
That all continues on. Then as they're talking, a bunch of shadows appear, a bunch of creepy goopy guys pop up from the floor ready to attack, and we're like, we got to get out of here. As they're waiting in the background for us, we're like, Taka or Jin, come with us. Like, we're not saying you should die. And he's like, nah, I don't want your pity, leave me be, I'm going out on my own terms.
Blows himself up.
So he blows himself up with the bad guys, which I love, because it's like, that there's like infinite numbers of them, right? They'll just keep coming, but you do you, man.
But it shows what you were talking about of, like, they are fully committed to this. They
Yes.
are, in their eyes, they are dying one way or the other. Either you're killing them, the shadows are killing them, they're killing themselves, or the world ends. There's not any way out of this otherwise.
Absolutely. The sliver of hope that you are all hanging on to, and that those who know you, and as we later learn, are holding on to, they don't have that whatsoever. So yeah, it totally fits within where these characters are at. So after this fight, you do get that little bit of a pit stop again, where you can kind of, I do appreciate that it lets you refresh your party, change people out if you want, maybe adjust things if things aren't working to your liking. But you do that, and then you go up a couple other floors, and you get to, of course, the man of the hour, Takaya.
Hooray!
He's really, really pumped.
And his tats are like really prominent this one. I literally had to Google if he got new tattoos in this fight.
Did he?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I didn't notice that, so I'm like, wow. I wouldn't put it past the guy, to be honest. So you get to that floor with him, and he is very much like, why fight? Like, we should be celebrating this moment, celebrating every moment, in fact, and, you know, how so many other people have been rejoicing about this fall and what's coming. And in fact, you know, like, we unwittingly aided it in happening. So if anything, like, we should be celebrating the fact that we helped bring this all about, because to him, like, specifically what he said that I wanted to mention was that people cannot face death without first finding meaning in life, but people realize that, like, that meaning was lost long ago, essentially. So he is like, we should just accept that this is happening. Aigis rebuffs him and is like, you know, there's some truth in what he's saying, but, like, you have to choose to live with other people, to live a life of purpose, to choose bonds over solitude. Otherwise, there is no purpose. You're right. But, like, you have to make that conscious choice. And yeah,
it's very much like he represents the loss of hope, the loss of, and obviously he went through these horrible things, but he basically is saying there's no point to any of this. We should just give up.
Yeah.
and she's saying, yeah, that's a way to live through life. It is easier to just give up, but you know what? You gotta be living for something, or else you're like, yes. Otherwise, it just is all waiting for the end. You know, I think it's a very sort of inspiring message. It's very, you know, it's cliche-ish, but it's very real. It's a very good message that you can apply to life beyond just this.
Yeah, I think we'll obviously talk about this when we get to the end of the game, but inferring from here, I think, you know, as we've said before, this game, and I would even put this largely to just Atlas stuff overall, is not necessarily subtle, but that doesn't mean it lacks a truth. And in fact, I think so much of this does really ring true to life, as you said, that, like, it hits, even if it feels like, oh, I've seen a message like that before. But yeah. It's great. And so they have this sort of back and forth. He gets mad at Mitsuru because she's a Kurijo, basically.
Sure.
And says...
Well, yeah, because she's, like, says something, you know, condemning him for something he's doing. And he's like, that's rich coming from the people who killed 97 orphans.
Yeah. And she's like, I was 7. I didn't do any of that. But anyway, no, she doesn't say that. We fight. We're like, this is basically it. Like, we have to come to blows here at this point.
Yeah. And this fight is cool.
Yeah.
This fight was knife's edge from being bad for me.
Okay.
But I actually liked it. And the reason is I had 4 homunculus going into it, and I had to use 4 homunculus. So, like... There's a world where if you didn't have... He uses so many insta-kill attacks that there's a world where if you aren't prepped for that, this fight is miserable, right?
Yeah.
Your protagonist could die right away. You could be spending half your turns resurrecting people. If the turn order is weird, where, like, your people with res stuff come after the people... Like, it could just be bad. Yeah. But... It was not. It ended up, for me at least, being a pretty, you know, interesting dance of some big powerful attacks from him and having to heal when you needed to. And Makara Karns didn't work because he had lots of Megidolas and other things like that. And it was, I appreciated how different it felt from the Jin fight, even though fundamentally they were both just like fighting a dude who has magic.
Yes, yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest compliment I can give it is that, yeah, despite the similarities, it does feel pretty different from that Jin fight, and I did find it to be more difficult because it throws more at you, essentially. Like, there is just more you have to consider with some of what he nulls and rebuffs and whatnot, and how he attacks you. You just really have to be on your game with the way you're buffing your party, the way you're defending your party, and keeping on the attack. I thought you were going to say it was a sliver away from being terrible for you because he doesn't use his gun. He still has it in his waist, and he doesn't use it.
Yeah, that is frustrating. But no, that was not specific. I've moved on.
That's fair. I think it's so funny, especially when you consider what a battle between these groups are, where it's 4 individuals standing a decent distance away from this one guy, and that one guy has a gun.
Yeah. No, the other thing about this fight that was, again, specifically for me, I can imagine it being very annoying, but actually was quite simple, or like it worked out really well for me specifically.
Yeah.
Was I got him from like half health to almost dead with a concentrated Koromaru Theurgy. And
nice.
That melted his health, and it triggered his final phase of him being like, no, and using this huge move that drains all of your SP to like 0 on everyone. And I was like, oh my god, that's bad. If it weren't for the fact that I just got you to very little health and have 2 Theurgies lined up still.
Yeah. Also,
and so I didn't need the mana, and I just went bop bop and then used a Soma afterwards and was fine.
Yeah.
And like, if you trigger that and you have more fight to do, that's like hard.
Oh, absolutely. But no, I'm with you. I had 6 or 7 Somas in my pocket, so I was fine. I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Click. Here we go. Yeah. But no, to your point, it would be devastating if you're not prepared appropriately.
Yeah. And that's also, I do like, because he also had that ability that was just like steal all of your SP. And, like, that's brutal, but at this point in the game, if you've been prepping accordingly, you should have a lot of SP items. So it's this really good thing I like of, like, it adds tension. It adds, oh my god, how many times is he going to do that to me? I got to kill him quick. We got to think about this differently. I got to plan differently. I got to use items I'm not used to usually using. But also, it is manageable. It is not frustrating. And I really like that. So this fight was interesting to me. It was not like a all-timer boss fight or whatever, but it was definitely a fun fight.
No, absolutely agreed with you. I think, I'm pretty much agreed. I don't have a ton else to say about it, so I'm happy to move on from there if you're good to go. Cool.
Thank goodness for homunculi.
Yes, agreed. Unfortunately, he never landed a killing blow and then is just wiped out on the floor. It's just so funny where he is just
lying there.
It's almost funny, but it's just how exaggerated he is about it. But yeah, after the fight, he feels like he failed and he asks us to kill him. Like, there's no point to any of this now. And again, as you were saying earlier, he's expecting to die within the hour. So what does it matter? Aigis then asks him if he's scared, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he doesn't fear death and says that we fear it because we don't understand it. But
the quote is, "You must be a stranger to death if you think it is something to fear," which is just a really cool line.
Yeah, I do like, because then he's like, I have nothing more to say. I do really like the idea that at the end of this is like, if you don't understand what he is about at this point, he's not going to belabor it. Like, this is who he is. This is what he thinks he's fought for. And here we are.
Yeah. And you leave him alive because you're basically like, listen, we're not going to kill you. You get to see if the thing you have been thinking was inevitable is going to happen or not.
Yeah.
You get to find out with the rest of us.
Exactly. So without further ado, we get to the roof, the actual roof of Tartarus.
This is the big ending.
Yes. Well, until the 4th, but yes. We get to the roof. The moon's green glow is, lighting up the entire sky and drenching the area all around us. There's these pillars with ravens surrounding you as you get up there. And they all have feathers kind of falling upward from them into the sky. It's this really ominous, strange moment to walk into. And as you do, those feathers start to coalesce and form and swirl in the sky into a figure. And obviously the group assumes this figure is Nyx, but that's not exactly correct. It is and it isn't. It is essentially Ryoji, listed specifically as Nyx's avatar, but Ryoji's voice is coming through, and Ryoji is also like, there is no Ryoji at this point. Like, Nyx and I are one and the same thing.
Right.
I was the Harbinger, but I kind of no longer. There's no need for a distinction. I'm here, and I'm curious if you feel fear as we face each other at this moment. And just to, like, quickly, I love the look of this creature, this representation. It's that, like, pale white face that's kind of like a mask with a very blank smile expression.
It's a cool, creepy design. The big sword is really cool. The funny sort of knight piece or like rook hat of almost like a chess piece. The giant wings.
Yeah,
it's a neat design for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool, and faces you and is kind of like, hey, do you have this fear? There are shadows coming up from the lower floor as well. And then it, I believe, just kind of goes right into the fight at that point.
Yeah, well, there's a line I wanted to pull out, too.
Yeah,
please.
please.
He says, it's futile to resist. They talk about how it's, like, futile to resist death, but we still gotta face it. I can't remember who exactly says it. It might have been Aigis says, living means looking death a square in the face.
Yeah.
Which is, like, literally what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that is, I like that. And yeah, also,
it's so
the
cool.
shadows
It's so
approaching
anime.
from... Yeah, it is. The shadows approaching from the bottom floor is one of those suspension of disbelief things that annoys me that we talked about a while ago, which is like they needed a reason to explain why all of the party couldn't just fight death. But they didn't do that for Takaya or Jin. This is what I was talking about a few episodes ago where I was like, if they don't explain it, I don't care. But as soon as they're like, the rest of the party will deal with the shadows, you focus on death, I'm like, what about with Takaya? Then why didn't we all beat up Takaya? You didn't say anything then. Like,
were they all just standing watching?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we could have done a lot more damage, but okay.
Just don't tell me. Don't give me a reason, and I'll be okay with it.
Anyway, so yeah, they do like Mitsuru is like, second team defend, and they go off, and then you get into this fight, the final fight against Nyx's avatar.
It rules.
I'm glad you liked it. I think it's a really cool final fight.
I like it a lot. It's maybe not going to make my list of like top all-time boss fights, but I think it is a really good finale in terms of mechanically what it is, visually what it is, thematically what it is, the extra flair they give it, the fact that it's not just a huge health bar.
Yes.
Like all of these things just sort of, I mean, we can talk about it in more specifics, but yeah, I thought it was a really nice, especially in the context of this being like a 20-year-old game or whatever, or 15, whatever, some amount of years.
I think it's like 20-ish, yeah.
I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's I think a really surprising fight in the way that it goes on, because to your point, like, it isn't just one big health bar, but it is it's just split into 14 different parts, but it's used creatively to do so.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it work so well. And it's
Let's also start with music.
Yeah, we can start with the music.
The Velvet Room theme, but battle.
Tom, I transcend when I listen to this track. I let this both times I have done this battle now, I let it play just so I can hear it more. I have the soundtrack, I have it on, digital, I can listen to it, whatever. I think it is just such a cool... It brings in the Velvet Room. It brings in a couple other motifs from the game's soundtrack. It adds this like rockin' riff to it. It has these different stages of the track so that it doesn't feel too boring because this is a long fight. Yeah. I love it. I think it's such a cool track.
Yeah, it's not what I was expecting at all. Because that's the thing is, again, to compare to P5, Rivers in the Desert plays a few times.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
you get a few different moments of bosses and it evolves over time. And I was expecting this theme to show up for Takaya or whatever, but I liked that they saved this thing. It ties in with the Arcana, it ties in with the Velvet Room, which also comes up obviously later in this scene. Yeah, I thought that was cool. I thought that, and it also ties into that theme and those themes of Tartarus and the Velvet Room and stuff were starting to bleed into the real world in this last month as well.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I dug this.
Yeah, it's a really cool track. I adore it. I really love that music, especially just the way it the way it transitions from rock and guitar to like more of a piano tune and has these peaks and valleys to it. It works really well because this is a 14 round knockout fight.
Yeah, and they're not like, we talked previously in bonus episodes especially about like the multi-phase boss fight is always a thing at the end of big RPGs, and this was not as phase as usually those phases are like massive changes. This was like, I really enjoyed that these phases were shorter.
Yes.
That they weren't these huge grinds. It was you had to be strategic about blocking or charging theurgies, but then also there was this really interesting element of it of like, you gotta also conserve your theurgies or your charge or your focus to moments where you're not overkilling, because if the boss stage is at half health and you have a huge theurgy with Koromaru focused, maybe it doesn't make sense to use it on that round. Maybe you want to save it for the next one to take a bigger chunk. Yeah, I liked that a lot. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How long did it take you to figure out that this was a boss rush? Because it took me until probably like Arcana card 10 until I was like, oh, these are literally all of the weaknesses and the moves of all of the previous shadows that combined to become death.
Yeah, my first...
I dug. I think that's really cool.
No, totally. To your point of like the way that this boss fight, I think so wonderfully thematically ties the game together is really cool in how it does that. I want to say, yeah, it took me probably like at least 7 or 8 my first time through. I forget because it's been a few months, but I definitely did not catch that at first. I just like, obviously I caught that it was going through the Arcana, but I didn't make that connection to the other fights until a bit of the ways in, which maybe just makes us goofballs, but I'm so in the moment of it. I think it's cool that it's not in your face.
Yeah, and I also just didn't, I don't think you need to... They don't show it in your face, and I don't think you need to assume that's what's going on right away, because like my first assumption was the first stage was resistant to fire, and then the second stage was resistant to ice, and I said, oh, so maybe there's gonna be like 6 phases because it'll be like 1 for each element and then something else. And then we got past 6, and I was like, maybe it's gonna be 21, and it's just gonna be every single Arcana. And then I think it was when I saw the electricity attack that's this like zappity bolt that I was like, oh wait, that was one of the boss moves. And then later when I realized like, oh yeah, this is actually like each shadow literally. Yeah. I thought that was really, really, really neat.
Totally.
I also had a panic attack mid-fight.
Oh no, why?
Because every time he shifted Arcana, I was just like, yep, Fuka scan. Yep, Fuka scan. And then I got to about 8 or 9, and Fuka ran out of SP, and I went, okay, just gonna recover Fuka's SP mid-fight. Oh no, that's never a thing I've tried to do, and isn't allowed.
Nope, it is not. It is, yeah.
Whoa-oh. But thankfully, again, I only had a few more phases at that point, so it wasn't like catastrophic, but it was very, I had a moment where I was like, oh, I would have saved these for the later phases.
What a funny lesson to learn here. That is amazing. I love that. That's so funny. Yeah, no, I mean, it pays obviously to conserve some of those for later, but even if you don't, you can kind of play the Russian roulette, I guess, of trying to figure out what does actually make it through and what is a resistant shot or what is buffed and whatnot. I think also just to quickly speak to what you were saying of that feeling of, okay, maybe it's 6 phases, maybe it's 21, like what's going on here? There's almost a maybe unintentional comedic element to the idea of like how many rounds is this fight gonna be as you're going through, which I kind of dig. I think it's fun.
It also goes well thematically because you're fighting this thing, and every time it shifts, it gets cooler.
Yeah.
Every time it shifts, its sword catches on fire. Its wings turn red. You're not beating this thing.
Yes.
You are fighting it and winning and have hope and are making progress, and all the while it's just getting stronger.
Yeah, it just keeps effectively telling you, stop. This isn't worth it. Don't worry. And even like, not to just jump ahead, we can after you defeat it, Nyx rises into the air and is like, why? Okay.
There's some cool attacks at the end too when it finally gets to its death phase. It's got that like Armageddon one that puts everyone at 1 health right away.
Yeah.
There's that really cool one. There's some really good animations in this. Like all of the Arcana shift animations are really, really cool in the middle of the fight.
Yeah.
The one where he throws up all 12 of the Arcana cards and they sort of hang in the air and then meteor strike down on you.
It's so cool.
Is just so sick, right? Yeah. I think that all of this fight and the fights that came before it are very clearly still limited by the fact that they're part of an old game and this is a remake, but I think that they're very cool. Yes. They're very it's a very fun thing.
Yeah.
and they've done a good job of freshening it up to be very exciting in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially like considering the context, but all that aside, I really love to your point, the flair of the battle and the way it brings in and weaves the iconography of the Arcana, obviously between each flip, and then how it blends into attacks. It's just I think it's a really great fight, knowing that even aside from the fact that it's a 20-year-old fight, I think it's still a fun fight to go through today. And
again, the point being, one of my complaints with a lot of the bosses in this game have been that they're just sort of like slight twists on the same thing. Yeah. And I think this was working within the constraints that this game had at the time it was made. I think this was a really, really good way to not just make this fight a damage wall, a sponge of a thing, and also not make it feel like just, haha, we've won, now this is my next phase. Haha, but I had another. Like, the Arcana having it all be in combat and having these scenes happen in the middle of the fight rather than leaving and re-entering and leaving and re-entering, I think is to its benefit.
Yes, yeah. And also to your other point, just like, I completely lost my train of thought, so I don't know what I was going to say to your other point, and we'll just leave it there.
Great. Let's talk about the moon exploding.
Yeah, the moon does explode. Let's talk about that. So anyway, as I said, you fight all your way through. As you were saying, like, you are winning, but you aren't, is kind of the feeling of this. And it's really impressive to see all that happening. Nyx still rises up into the air. We're fighting against it. We promise we're going to keep fighting to do so. And Nyx is even like, maybe the fall actually could have been prevented if there were more like you. Too bad.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
Yeah, because you leave a dent at the end. You make him go,
Yeah. He has like a slight scratch that he'll have to buff out later on his cool jacket. Anyway, this all happens, and then the moon turns black from its green, creepy glow, and then red cracks, spill out in like a spider web from it, and it just bursts apart into pieces. And
the moon explodes.
The moon explodes. Its shell is cratering towards you, basically, or it looks like it's about to, but it sort of ends up fanning out behind this very creepy, large, red and black eye-looking thing.
Yeah.
At the center of the moon.
Nyx is the moon itself, I believe somebody says.
Yes, yeah. I do love the idea that what I love here is this culmination where we have been living by the moon this entire game. Like, the phases of the moon, that's all what you've been doing, and it's been Nyx the whole time.
Yeah.
It's a nice little full circle moment there
and
for
then,
a full moon.
And then Nyx starts pulling it towards the Earth to destroy everyone, Majora's Mask style, at which point I went, wait a minute, that's not all of us just going to sleep. That is destroying the Earth with the moon.
Seems a little bit more dramatic, yeah.
This is a little different than what we were told was going to happen.
Maybe that bad ending wasn't so bad.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so...
And to that point, because everyone starts waking up going, oh my god, the moon is coming towards the Earth, and then people start melting and eating each other, and you're like, wait, this is not apathy syndrome just taking over the Earth. This is the end of the world.
This is an attack by the moon. Yes, yeah. It's very much like a Roland Emmerich movie, but turned anime. Like, the moon is attacking us. Yeah, as you said, everyone wakes up in the dark hour who were coffins. They're shocked by what's going on, very confused. There are a couple people who are like, hell yeah, it's the apocalypse. Like, let's go. This is happening. But it's mostly a lot of people very confused and dying.
There's a deranged guy who's like, yes, that is so well animated in terms of just how crazy he looks.
Yeah, it's really well done. You get all of that happening. You see kind of the chaos that is starting to form down below you. And then Takaya, battered and beaten, shows up behind us to take in the glory of his victory. He's all proud of what he's accomplished. Can't wait to be here. Again, could have just taken the gun. Killed us all. But anyway, he does all that. And then as he comes up to the roof, a blast from the moon of like pure force comes down. And it's pushing us so strongly, we cannot stand up.
Yeah.
As this is happening, Takaya weirdly is like, I wish Jin was here for this. Like, to be in pain with you? Okay, yeah. So that's all happening. We don't want to give up about this. Nyx is questioning us, telling us just to give in. There's no reason to, but the group is kind of like all saying in their own way of like, we refuse to do that. We made our choice. Like, this is what we're going to stand for and fight with our last bit of energy. At that time, also, your consciousness is fading.
Yeah. And this is where we see all of the friends in the world, except for Hayase and Hiraga for some reason. They, I guess, weren't close enough to make this cutscene. That's weird. Anyway, we don't have to talk about why.
Yeah, that's definitely true for everyone's game. But no, yes, it cuts to the streets and you get these groupings of your social links. It is dependent on which social links you have maxed out for who talks, who appears, who gets a little line here and there. Everyone is kind of scared and confused as that's going on. And you know, you get just little bits here and there from all those people. And then it cuts to you in the Velvet Room. You're assured that you're not in the afterlife. Things are still going on. You know, as we were told early on, the strength of our links will determine what our potential is. We need to listen to their voices, and everyone reaches out. And so again, all of the social links that you maxed out, you get little voice cues of how much they believe in you. Sort of like ethereal voices in your head of like, you can do it, I believe in you. It's very, very Kingdom Hearts right now for me, so I loved it. I took it all in. You get all these little voices telling you about how much they believe in you, even though there's no reason they would be thinking of you right now and you needing to save the world. Everyone does.
You have a connection.
You do. And that's what matters. And
I really like Maya being voiced by Toriumi here. It's just sort of to 100% confirm that. And if you hadn't pieced that together for whatever reason, it's cute to have Maya's voice here.
Yes.
I also find Kamiki being there sort of hilarious and cute, but it's death is in the world, whatever, ghost, it's fine.
It's fine. I will say, of the people on the street, I do love our favorite salesman appearing and being like,
why am I here?
Yeah. I think even when he's on Earth, he's like, who's going to pay for all this, basically?
He's like, why am I thinking of you right now?
Yeah,
like, quite literally.
It's so funny. But anyway, you get all these voices, and then the greatest power as a result of this has been unveiled. It is to bring about either a new beginning or the ultimate end, and it is the power of the universe, and it's the Universe Arcana card.
Which even Igor is like, oh, I never thought I'd see that.
Yeah. He's just enjoying. He's like, ooh, new lore drop for me. This is fun. I'm enjoying that. So he's like, nothing is outside the realm of possibility for us now. You can achieve what you are setting out to do, is what he's telling you. It's like because of the strength of your friendships, there is now theoretically a way to defeat Nyx and save the world.
Right.
We arrive at our destination in the Velvet Room, and then we wake up back in the real world on the roof. We are able to stand up, empowered by this new gift against the force of Nyx and the moon crushing down on us. The group is kind of worried about us, what's going to happen here, but we just float up to the moon.
Yeah, you just fly.
We just
it's
gain
very
the power
badass.
of flight. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the elevator letting you off to go. That's a cute little thing of like, we're done. So this elevator that has been running the whole time stops is cute. This cutscene is a little goofy, but mostly badass and awesome and epic of everyone being crushed and you just stand up and just walk. And that part is really cool. The part that's a little goofy is when you just, like you were saying, Kingdom Hearts fly straight into the moon.
Yeah. But anyway, you end up in there and you come face to face with Nyx.
A golden egg.
Yes, a mysterious golden egg that kind of has like a crack in the middle of it. There's these rotating cinder blocks almost behind it. These wispy wings with kind of tentacly hands at the end of them are stretched out all around it. And we're essentially fighting, the manifestation of Nyx as much as we can at this point.
It's literally called Nyx Core.
Yes, yeah. So if we're going to take something down, this is it.
Yeah, this is the real thing.
Yeah, so we get up there.
And there's also new music, I think, here?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a great soundtrack at the end. It really culminates well. It uses an attack on you that knocks us down to 1 HP.
Right.
And then we can start to hear the gang back on the roof giving us strength. You get little bits and pieces of S.E.E.S telling you to fight as well. It revives you at first just for a little bit of health. It's not much, but it lets you be able to attack. You get a little bit more health, attack, and so on and so forth until you eventually get back all of your HP and you're able to use one final attack against the core.
And I'm curious if these conversations also require you to be maxed out with folk, but I imagine not, especially because the guys wouldn't have had something like that.
I think so, yeah.
But you hear Shinji's voice too, which is really sweet, and he doesn't even get like a dialogue box. It's just sort of like that's very nice to me.
Yeah.
I wrote down the quote: "The power of friendship surges within you."
Yeah, you want to talk about some Kingdom Hearts stuff? There
Yes.
you go.
And then you get super buff with the power of friendship, and you do the thing that I loved in P5 too, which is you get to press the button to do the final attack to end the game.
Yep. So you let out this one final blast at Nyx's core, and a bright light appears.
Can we talk about this for a second?
Yes.
This whole sort of conclusion of this.
Yeah.
I thought it was very epic, and I enjoyed it. I also thought it was a little bit unsatisfying. Like,
which part? Go ahead.
It felt a little Deus Ex Machina to me.
Sure.
And it felt a little like it was very, quite literally, the real power was the friends we made along the way.
It is,
right?
yes. Yeah, it absolutely is that. Yeah.
In a way that felt different in P5. P5 was like the whole world. This was like just a few, I don't know. It felt like I was waiting for, this is the one part that, not disappointed, because I still enjoyed the whole conclusion, but this was the one part I wanted more from, I guess, is because I was wondering the whole time, they're going to beat Nyx, but it's impossible. Everyone's saying it's impossible. So how are they going to do this? What twist is there going to be? And the twist was basically Igor saying, hey, you made friends. Here's a card no one ever told you about and no one thought existed that lets you do literally anything and fly and just win. And then there's no gameplay beyond that. Like, I was expecting another phase against Nyx Core that was like a real fight.
Gotcha.
Or something.
Yeah.
But instead it's basically just like, here's the win card. Now you're on rails and just go win. And I was like a little bit let down that was so Deus Ex Machina straightforward.
For sure.
Again, not that I didn't enjoy the emotion of it, the vibe
yeah.
of it, the epicness of it. I just wish that there was like a little bit more of an explanation about why that was just like, yeah, here you win. And maybe there's gonna be more. Maybe I haven't seen the whole end of the game, or maybe the answer has an answer or something like that. But like, that at least was my takeaway in that final section.
For sure.
Is the power of friendship surges within you was not good enough for me.
I get that. I get that here. One thing I would say, obviously we talked about it before, and not that I think it's like a silver bullet that protects that, because I do think that's a fair trope to call out. It is also the thing of, but especially, comparing to P5, the lessons of what was done here in this story informed maybe what you like better in P5, because they learned and grew.
Yeah.
So, there's things
For
like
sure.
that where I'm like, I also can see how, in the way that this trio of more modern Persona games has existed, how what's here does definitely feel, I think, like slighter in ways there, for sure. I think the parts that resonate more with me than the friendships are our power part is the idea that it's not just because you have friends, it's because you gave those friends hope in a world that is increasingly hopeless. I think that messaging resonates so much more and is effective and feels like a good spin on a relatively universal storyline to really make this feel unique. And I wish maybe it included a little bit more of that language there, but like the hope of your friend surges within you even might like just change that a little bit to the idea of like, that's what matters here, I think, really more than just you having friends. So I totally get where you're coming from.
The friendship part, and again, the friendship part wasn't even like the problem as much as just like,
It's just
I don't know.
that. Yeah.
Here's an Arcana card that lets you do literally anything was like very on the nose. The game needs to end now, sort of.
Totally.
To me,
Yeah.
I guess is what I would say.
No, I get what you mean.
Let's stop the negative Nancying and
All
let's
good.
keep going, because I do enjoy the rest of this as well.
Yeah, no, all good. So that bright light appears after your final attack, and it resumes on the group. Member of S.E.E.S are all standing in this kind of sea of stars. It's just like an endless night where stars are all around them. They are on a, perfectly flat surface, though, standing within this area. You are gone. They're all obviously very confused about what's happening. They're like, did we win? I guess. Fuka tries to sense you and can't. So the group is very worried about you. They're yelling out like, you can't leave us. Don't do this. It's not fair. Like, that shouldn't be the case.
That's one part I liked about also as you fly away is they're really mad that you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
They're really angry at you for not including them, pretty much, or just trying to go alone when the whole thing is them working together. But obviously they are the reason you succeed.
Yes.
Inevitably.
Yeah. So eventually that all happens and you do hear them. So you're able to respond and be like, no, I'm here. Don't worry. Like, it's okay.
We're good.
And it's kind of like the voice of Ryoji comes through, I think, again, and is kind of like, well, peace will return to the universe now. Good job.
You did it.
Yep. You found the princess in this castle. Great job. It's very much like a, hey, don't worry about him. He'll return as well. He just found the answer to life's greatest question a little sooner than you all will, but you will as well. And it's important to realize how the bonds of friendship have changed each other. Dark hour will vanish. Our lives will continue on. And then it cuts back to the group appearing in the real world at the foot of Tartarus.
Yeah, there's a line that Ryoji says of, the dark hour is ending and you have the miracle that you sought, which I thought was basically him saying, yeah, you wanted a miracle to save the world and you did it.
You got it.
You
Good
found
job.
it.
Yeah. So that all happens. They appear back. Tartarus starts to disappear. The sky changes back to a normal color. The tower is disintegrating. They're in front of then what obviously becomes the front of the school. And we appear as well, walking from the school entryway area. And Aigis runs toward us, to rejoice and be back together. And then the night ends.
Yeah, everyone's crying, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah.
Everyone's very excited, very glad you're alive and is crying. Except for Mitsuru. Literally, even the robot is crying. But not Mitsuru, who, by the way, is your girlfriend in my game.
She's fine. Well, she's also dealing with the fact that her family kidnapped 100 orphans.
Yeah, it's true. No, I like that I like the way everyone reacts to this. Like, Akihiko's crying, and he's, like, mad that he is. Mitsuru is still very much herself, and it's nice that she is sort of steelier than others. Koromaru's just excited. It's just a very sweet little bonding moment at the end here.
Absolutely. Oh, that reminds me, when you're hearing the whole group's voices come to you inside the moon, and it's cutting to each person, I love when it cuts to Koromaru and it's just arf arf. is his cheer of. It would be so funny if for one line they just got a human voice actor to be like, I believe in you, my friend.
So what I would love to know,
yes,
for people who, and I guess I can Google this, is what happens if you haven't maxed anyone out?
Oh.
I gotta know. Or maybe even more weird, what if you've, like, only maxed out Suimitsu? Does Suimitsu just show up and his belief gives you the universe? Like, what?
That's all you need.
Is there a threshold you need to hit in terms of maxing out to do it? I'm so curious about that.
That's interesting. There has to not be, because by the time you get there, there's nothing you can do.
Uh-huh.
Other than rewind your save and replay, which is pretty brutal, but I guess that could be
maybe you just lose the game.
Maybe. Yeah, well, if anyone knows, let us know. I'd be really curious. But yeah, so the night ends and it cuts to March 4th.
Which we'll talk about in a month.
We will.
So there's a save point at March 4th pretty quickly after this little conversation that they have. But literally I saved and stopped.
Yes.
And Jonathan, even today, when I told him that, was like, you should probably play it. It'll hit harder if you play it right after the boss fight. But I am committing to the bit that is this show, and I am not going to play this game again until the start of March.
I love that. Well, you out there, don't feel you have to do the same.
I do not recommend doing the same, even.
I'm talking to you, Sarah, in the Patreon, who said I also took a lot of self-control to turn off the game on March 3rd. Please keep playing.
So for the record, I'm doing this because I'm committing to the bit that is this podcast. But, like, Jonathan, you actively would not recommend that to someone who is playing for the first time, right?
No, I think very much the ending works within the context of this whole boss scene. I will say your time going forward for this little bit, I guess just to tee it up, could vary. Essentially, the game kind of spits you out to a lot of free time before you get to, like, what triggers the end of the game.
Right.
At a certain point, and you could theoretically have a lot of conversations, go around town, check out every little area just to see how things are doing. You could do all that, or you could kind of just rush through. I recommend taking your time because that's our show.
Hooray!
But it's there you can get a good chunk of time out of doing that. So
cool. Yeah.
You have a month to do it if you'd like.
But ostensibly, we have beaten the game.
We've beaten theoretically the final boss until there's another final fight coming. It's weird because I can't be like, what'd you think of the ending? Because you haven't seen the ending.
Yeah, but I did like this conclusion.
Good.
I thought it was appropriately epic and touching in a lot of good ways, and had a lot of nice little character moments, and wasn't baggaged down by exposition.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the fact that Takaya and Jin had some reveals but not a ton was probably the right move. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this whole game, but I've definitely, this whole final fight felt like a good capstone on it.
Nice. Well, we'll talk about what actually happens at the end when we get there.
Yes.
In a month. And as I said at the top of the show, we'll also be talking about the episode Aigis DLC. Definitely, as I said, that'll be at March 31st. Give yourself some time to play that if you're playing along with us, or, just are going to play that between beating the game and when we record. It is not a small DLC.
It's like a few dozen hours, right?
Yeah, you can easily get 30-ish hours out of it. So, take your time, but you'll have about a month if you're sticking to the schedule like us. If not, and you're just...
Or you'll have 2 months if you're a normal person.
That too. So however you choose to play, we hope you're enjoying it. We really appreciate that you've been along with us for this ride, and I'm excited to talk about where we are in March. But as we said also at the top of the show, we are going to be continuing to release normal episodes throughout February. Since the game skips over time, we'll be using that time to talk about, social links that we missed out on discussing, especially a lot of the ones involving your party and S.E.E.S. Probably doing some maybe social link or party tier list things of that nature, involving some of your comments and questions. I know I already reached out for some on the Patreon, but would love to hear from everyone, especially about this boss fight, this part of the end of the game, and then when we get to the end of the game as well. But yeah, we're excited to land into whatever appears in March. But
yeah. And also I'd love if people have questions for me in terms of just like this being my first exposure to this, and kind of the game, thoughts of the game overall, specific things that you want to know my take on now that I've seen the end or the mostly end. That sort of thing is something we can definitely dig into in the next couple weeks as well. And obviously, you said this a little bit, but like, we'll do Aigis' max rank. I think we have to do Yukari's max rank still. There's some characters we can dig into, some stories we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, so plenty to discuss, plenty to jump into. We'll keep everyone updated about what those show topics are as we get through the month. But we appreciate you being with us all along this way. But yeah,
it's been a fun journey.
It has. And before we wrap up that journey and wrap up this episode, Tom, what's your pop quiz for this week?
All right, I'm bringing back a classic from season 1. I think this was my finale pop quiz for that too. When you kill Nyx's core, you have to press the button to pull up your persona, and you have to use a specific move. So the question is, what is the name of the final move you use to beat the game? And what is the name of the persona that you have equipped when you use it? That's the question. Leave a comment at youtube.com/Dornology, patreon.com/takeyourtime. Send an email to dornology@gmail.com. I'm at Tom Marks on socials. He's at JM Dornbush. We've got all of those places and more. You can reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, again, about this pop quiz or whatever. And yeah, can't believe we're finally here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that almost a year ago, certainly exactly almost a year ago by the time we finish the show, it'll have been a year.
Yeah.
It's really always funny to think about this show in that context. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended, I think, exactly on episode 50 for season 1.
Yes. Yeah.
And season 2, I think we're going to end, because this is 41, so I think we're going to end on like 2, 3, 4, like 45 or something like that. It'll be close.
I love it. That's great. Well, not to spoil your pop quiz, but I can't believe Peter Griffin is the persona that they have you summon at the end of the game. Yeah. He does
That's a weird pull.
I know. He does it. Well, it's because I've been playing a lot of Fortnite, and the Peter Griffin helicopter is a glider that you can use, and as you're landing it goes and it's just very funny to annoy other people with that. Anyway, that's for my Fortnite podcast that I definitely should not start, or I would have no free time. So thank you all so much for joining us as always, and for joining us throughout this wild adventure. It's been such a blast. We're excited to bring it all together in a few weeks, but we hope you'll stick along with us through these fun, wackier, sillier weeks that we'll have. But yeah, that's it. Tom, anything else?
No.
What do you think is going to happen on March 4th? A few people have asked, actually.
Oh.
Give me your final prediction.
Well, March 5th, I don't know, because March 4th, I already saw, like, I didn't stop the game. I got to the save point, so I know that you have that little interaction, and then there's, like, opportunities to talk to people. I already know that much. March 5th, I think that everyone's going to go to the roof and not know why they're there, and then suddenly remember everything and start crying and hugging. And then there'll be a cathartic moment, and that'll be the end of the game. If I had to do a wild prediction, it'd be that Ryoji comes back somehow, but probably not. I don't know. I don't know. I think it'll be like just a nice little. My assumption, my prediction is that it's just going to be a nice little coda with everyone on the roof and very happy and reflecting, remembering what's up, and then reflecting on everything that happened.
Cool. Works for me. We'll see where that actually lands in just a few weeks. So thank you, Tom, for that. Thank you for joining me as always, and thank you to everyone out there for listening to us, for dealing with our shenanigans, and for being along with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the support, and as always, I hope you seize the day.